Alright, what is up YouTube? So today I'm going to be bringing you guys a tier list video for the end of the format. I feel like I was obligated to tell you guys what the best deck is or what my opinions are right now and moving forward after the ban list, and kind of give you just what I think about the format as a whole. I think we have a lot of problems that were missed on the last ban list, which is why we have kind of the same decks that are top tier right now, plus Phantom Rage, which is still pretty new. And I want to give you guys my opinions on the format. We have tier 1, which is the best decks. Then we have tier 2, which is not necessarily the best decks, but not on like the tier 3 status. And then we have tier 3, which is like maybe one or two tops in the top cut, but not really, that good. And then we have rogue tier. Rogue tier and tier 3 are totally different. I think tier 3 is something you would expect to top, but only gets like 1 to 0 tops. And then rogue tier is more of the underdogs of the format, more like, maybe decks you don't really think can do something, but they're really strong. They're just not doing anything on the results of these YCSs or LCSs, whatever you want to call it. And then the trash tier is just decks that are just not really that good. So let's get started with the tier 1. We're going to start with Adamantivators. I think Adamantivator is rogue tier. Rogue tier, of course, Adamantivators are still really good. They have a lot of plays. They can still play through a few hand traps. They still have Guardian. They still have all these extenders. They still have Signs. Like, they still have all of these cards. They also have Dragoon, which is pretty strong. But then again, Block Dragon was a huge hit. I think it's still rogue tier. It's not doing any real results. It's, having results at the local level, but at these bigger tournaments, the quarantine event, we have the LCSs and stuff like that. It's just not doing that much in the tops, and that is why it's in the rogue tier. Same thing with Mutants. I think Mutants is not trash tier. I think they're kind of up there because they have something like the Dimensional Shifter. That card is just really strong against a lot of matchups and just automatically ends turns for a lot of those decks. It's a good control deck. It just has a really hard time of getting started. Like, if they stop your turn 1 play, it's just kind of bad. And sometimes if you just don't open a hand trap, you just can't break any boards. So Mutants, they're not terrible. They're not trash, but they're definitely decent. Let's go on to the next one, Virtual Worlds. I think they're tier 1 status, but it's a little bit too early to say. So I'm gonna put them in tier 2. I think after the ban list, if we do get significant hints to the tier 1 decks, I think that Virtual Worlds is definitely going to be a tier 1 deck. But just to be safe, I think tier 2 is definitely the call. The deck is still pretty new. People are still trying to figure out how to play against the deck. And the deck is a little bit fragile to hand chop sometimes. Sometimes they do have really good hands that play around a lot of disruption. They may have Lao, they may have the Lulu and stuff like that. But sometimes they draw like no extenders. They just have one play, and if that play gets stopped, the deck it just falls on its head. Also, stuff like Lancia ends the turn sometimes as well. There's just a lot of things that people need to account for and play around. But I still think Virtual Worlds is probably top tier, especially after the ban list. Then for Dragon Link, we have tier 1. This deck is just really good. A lot of people are kind of discounting the deck because they start to cut the Smoke Grenade and the Volume Cube, but the deck is still strong. It still plays through a lot of hand traps. It still has a really decent board. Probably lacks against control decks because of the whole, Buster Lock is not that good against control decks because they don't really need their extra deck. Maybe Zoos, but besides that, like, these decks don't really get hurt by it. But it's still a very strong deck. It can go first, it can go second. Legionnaire is just a powerful card as well. So this deck is still strong. I think it's very good. Now we're going to move on to the trash tiers. I know I see a lot of trash tiers over here. I didn't make this list, so we're just gonna get started. Raid Raptors is pretty bad, even with Phantom Rage. Burning Abyss is trash as well. I think Guru, I'm not gonna be harsh on it. I think Guru is pretty decent, but it's almost trash tier, to be honest. DDD is trash tier. Ray or Striker is trash tier. Blue Eyes is trash tier. Infernity, Monarch, Madolche is kind of rogue. I'll get into that in a bit. I don't know what Red Eyes is here. I think Zombies is trashed here. Cyber Dragons is trashed here. This is trashed here. Thunder Dragons is trashed here. ABC is trashed here. Like all of these kind of like rogue decks, quote unquote, are not really that good. Math Mechs, I'll talk about Math Mechs in a bit, but it does seem like it's getting some results. Not too high on the ladder. Dragon Maid as well. I think Shadal's is another one as well. Let's clean up more of these. I think Tri-Brigades is a fail. Orcus is a fail. I love Mermels, but I'm gonna say it's trashed here as well. Solomon Grace is trashed here. Imaginables is trashed here. Infernoids. Then we have UAs. Both of these decks had support, but they're just not honestly enough. True Draco is trash. Altergeist. It might be, you know, rogued here, but honestly, it's kind of trashed here because there's just too many problems in this format. And then, is there anything else that's trashed here? I think Heroes is kind of trashed here as well. Yeah, I think that's it for kind of like the trash here. Mystic Mind Burn is kind of trashed too as well. So, for Math Mechs have been seeing a lot of success on the ladder, the Dueling Book ladder, of course, but I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe it's not rogued here. I think it's trashed here, but then again, someone tell me. I've been seeing this deck a lot in the top-rated or high-rated Dueling Book duels, so maybe Math Mechs have something to them. Like, it is an OTK deck. It is a deck that a lot of people don't know how to play around or play against, so maybe Math Mechs is pretty decent. They did get a new card, I think, recently. I'm not sure, but yeah, Math Mechs are pretty decent. Same thing with Dragon Maids. They do have their support that came out in Edco. They also have all the Dragon Link stuff and stuff like that. And they also have the Ice Dragon Prison. All this like cool stuff they have in the deck in access to. It's just that they're just not good enough. Shadal's as well. Shadal's are really good. They have the Dogmatica engine. They have the other engines, the Invoked as well. But they just can't cut it in the meta. They did top the LCS, the last LCS, of course, but I just don't think Shadal's is really up for the match. Then we also have PKs. I think PKs is definitely... I really think this deck is super strong, but it just gets outclassed by Infernobles, Dragon Link, and Virtual Worlds. Like, why put up, like, I don't know, why would you put up Dragoon when you have something like Virtual Worlds that can put a BFD and, like, end your turn, or have Dragon Link where you can Buster Lock, or Infernobles where you can like hand loop and, you know, have a lot of negates. It just like kind of outclasses the PKs, but they're still pretty good. Infernobles tier 1, I think this is the best deck of the format. I feel like there's just not a lot of people playing it, and on top of that, it's a really hard deck to play at higher tiers. It's not something easy, something like Dragon Link and Virtual Worlds. Once you know how to play the deck, it's pretty easy, but I think Infernobles has the highest amount of skill percentage, and I feel like a lot of people just lose to this deck because they just have too many extenders. It's just really good. It just is the reason why Smoke Grenade needs to get banned on its next ban list. I feel like if you have a card that needs to get hit on the ban list in your deck, it probably is a tier 1 to tier 2 deck, which is why all these three are at the tier 1 and tier 2 spots. Then we have the Zoo deck. I'll represent this as Zoo. I think Zoo is tier 3. I don't think it's as dominant as something like Virtual Worlds, Infernobles, or Dragon Link, but they're still are pretty strong. Like, Zeus is a scary card, Dryden is still pretty scary, Mega Clops is very scary. Like, you have all of these like scary cards in Zoo decks, and then on top of that, you can put in stuff like Elflich, which, you know, Golden Lord is a pretty good card, Conquistador, Aquero, like all of these good cards come with these engines. And then you have the Dogmatica engine, which you have Fleur de Lis, and you also have the Punishment. So I don't know, Zoos might be another deck that might be tier 1 after the ban list. So I'll have to see. I think it's a little bit less consistent than Virtual Worlds because Zoos rely a lot on the battle phase, and if they can't attack directly, do some damage or battle with a monster, they can't get the Zeus. And if they can't get the Zeus, they kind of lose. Or if they can't get the if they can't get the Megaplops, they just lose. So, Buster Blader, I think Buster Blader is also rogue tier. I think this deck, it's kind of A's to play against. It's really annoying, and if you don't really have a response to it, you kind of lose because they have this highest ceiling of just blocking you out and also OTKing you on the following turn if they have something like Rocket Tracer on the following turn. And there's just other stuff like Axis Code that can also kill you when they have stuff like the Needle Fiber combo. So I think that's pretty good. Prank Kids, I think Prank Kids might be tier 3. I have high hopes for this deck. I feel like a lot of people are just not playing the deck correctly. I know that sounds like kind of like, oh, this deck is good, you're just not playing it right. But I feel like Prank Kids will have their shine in the meta. I think they are better than all of these decks in the rogue tier status. I think they have a very, very good grind game. So Prank Kids, I think they are tier 3. They're definitely on the same level of Zoos, where if they don't have the extender or they don't have the poly or the pranks or like Monster Born or something like that, they kind of lose to their normal summon, just like Zodiacs. But they do have an amazing grind game. They have the Battle Butler, they have the Weather Washer that is really good, they have Protection with also the Weather Washer and the Bower Bark. They just have a lot of recursion and, you know, grind games. So this deck is just very, very strong. Dinosaurs, I think this is the last tier 1 deck. Dinosaurs is just super insane. As I said before, if your deck has a card that needs to get hit on the ban list, it's probably a tier 1 to tier 2 deck, unless it's like a generic card like Mystic Mind. So Dinosaurs, I think they didn't have that much of representation at the last LCS, but I still think Dinosaurs is just an insane deck. It can go first, it can go second, it can break boards, it can make boards. Like, this deck does it all. And Mist is just like a prime example of why this deck is just so good, and is why it's a tier 1 deck. Then we have Invoked. I'm pretty sure this represents like Invoked Dogmatica. I think they are also tier 3. I'd honestly probably put it to tier 2, honestly. I think Invoked Dogmatica is a very strong deck, especially when you have something like the Winda that is just really, really strong. You also have, you know, Invoked is just a really strong engine. Just Invoke Macabre is just a very good card, as well as being able to protect your Dogmatica cards with the Macabre, which is pretty insane. And having the Dogmatica cards be just super utility is just very, very good. So I think that Invoked Dogmatica is definitely better than Zoos and your Prank Kids, because they just have a lot of 1-card combos. Also, the Window Lock is just very, very strong. So I think they're definitely better than Prank Kids and Zeus, but are on the same level of Virtual Worlds and not as good as something like Infernoble Dragon Link and Dinosaurs. And then for the last deck, I'm going to say Eldritch. Eldritch is definitely very strong, but I feel like it's tier 3. It's more of an engine. It's not really a deck on itself. The deck on its own doesn't really do that much. All it has is Conquistador and Hulk and maybe Golden Land Forever. But besides that, the deck is just not really that good, because sometimes you kind of brick, but sometimes you might have both Hulk, Conquistador, and maybe even Golden Land Forever, and you can shut down your opponent. Maybe you also have a hand trap to follow up as well. So Eldritch, really good engine, really solid deck, just not enough to be tier 2 or tier 1. So that is it, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this tier list and what you think the format will end up on the next Forbidden/Limited list or the next format. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, or you disagreed, give it a dislike, I don't know. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.